Test, test. Well, I don't know who's gonna show up or not, but I'll just get started. So, my name is Trung. I was born and raised in San Jose, and for the most part, been very involved with a lot of technology. Just been surrounded by it my entire life. And growing up, uh, my biggest desire was to help people. Hey, wheelie dope. How's it going? Yeah, I'm just trying to get things off my chest, especially with how things have blown up in the last 24 hours or so with, Mercu, cutting out on the V13. I mean, there's no way to get around it. A cutout is a cutout. It is. You can argue semantics, and you know, it was caused by an overlean. InMotion put an official statement out this morning about it, and yeah, it was just kind of a lot of contributing factors, but um, there's still a lot of talks happening. I know Francois, in particular, has been very much pushing towards ways to prevent something like that from happening. Uh, but in the end, these devices have limits. That's exactly what it is. And somebody apparently crossed those limits. um, the best way, and Francois mentioned this, is better alerts, better alarms, current alarm systems on the V13 with the 5 second per beep thing for an over current condition. Yeah, that's not acceptable. Uh, that's been addressed, and things are going to get improved as time goes by. But enough about that. We'll cover the V13 a little bit more. Just basically background who I am and what I do. Like I said, I'm in San Jose, grew up with technology all around me and just wanted to help people. And from there, I just, focused on being a better person a lot. Um, Wheelie Dope says, unfortunate that he cut out. And yeah, there was overconfidence. Uh, in that regard, I wanted to address the whole, everybody believes the V13 couldn't cut out for whatever reason. Um, I addressed this as well, and other people have asked, "Hey, can any self-balancing vehicle be engineered enough to have an actual no cutout experience?" And I'll answer no. It's there will always be limits. Um, there's no getting around it. If unless the wheel itself can reach infinite speeds with a limitless power supply, there's always going to be a point where you're going to push it and it goes over. In motion, in my opinion, with this controller and this wheel, they placed headroom specifically on speed, and that's you know what their focus was. That once you reach a certain speed, that the wheel will tilt back, and I hit tilt back daily. on a regular basis. I have over 1,000 miles on my V13, and I can send you logs. I can send you screenshots. I've hit over 11,000 kilowatts at one point, coming from a standstill and accelerating hard. But the issue that we saw was that he kept leaning, and he was already close to the limit, and the wheel gave up. It's it's an unfortunate circumstance. There's no way around it. Other things about it, there was photos of the wheel, if you guys didn't see, and the most of the damage I saw was just damage to the metal bumpers, replaceable. The wheel itself looked absolutely fine. I didn't see, or he didn't show any photos of the rim or anything, if that got damaged, or even the side panels. He just showed us photos of the bumpers themselves just getting scratched up. That's it. And to me, that's still ridiculously impressive. So, hey, Francois. Speaking, speak of the yeah, I was just talking about how you've been really pushing on getting those alerts uh, implemented properly. With uh, so, this morning I was riding my V13 as I usually do to work, because it is at the moment my commuter wheel. I use it on a regular basis. That's why I have so many miles on it. But I did, miss out on a week or two of riding back in December. So um, the rain was, I mean, I have confidence riding it in the rain, but there comes a certain point where roads are flooded and the rain comes down hard. And no, I don't care how, a point where I don't feel comfortable riding it in such weather conditions. So I did miss, you know, some riding in December. So I could have more miles on my wheel, but that's pretty much it. Otherwise, it's been performing fine. Um, I might be crazy, but I still have the stock bolts, axle bolts on them. I just keep an eye out on, hearing that grunt or growl that people have been hearing when things get loosened up. And, when I heard Black Cobra post his video of the wheel doing the same thing, I reached out to him. I was like, hey, at the very minimum, check the axle bolts. And then he did so, said it was pretty tight. And I'm like, well, that particular noise only comes when something is loose. So I'm like, what else could be loose in the system? I'm like, maybe the sliders. Told him to tighten up the slider gap, and boom, the noise went away. So that was good to hear back from him doing that. I don't know if anybody has any questions, because I'm literally just, for the most part, no one. Uh, my background, I guess I can cover that. I only started writing um, UCs, e wheels, whatever you want to call it. We're still trying to figure out the new term. Um, Less than 2 years ago. From a technical background, I looked into micromobility around pandemic time, so 2020 or so, and just started getting interested, and I wanted to tinker and find a way to get around, particularly around campgrounds, around hiking trails, just something a little bit more convenient than a bicycle. So, me being in San Jose and a stone's throw away from Future Motion, I obviously, just from marketing themselves, looked at the one wheel, because, it's right there. Uh, I'll get to your question in a bit, but I saw it, didn't wasn't interested in the price whatsoever. So I looked into making one myself, and this was the time when Vesk started to emerge, at least in the DIY one wheel style devices. So ended up buying a float wheel. It was, I guess, the V2 was whatever it came out with at the time. Built it up myself, learned all the quirks and programming needed, and got it functioning. And rode that for the longest time until I ended up wanting more speed and range, which one of my friends who's been riding electric unicycles for a while finally introduced me to. Hey, you just need to learn how to ride one. Thoughts on the V13 overall suspension range comfort. Suspension works really well for street. I mean, I wouldn't take the V13 off road. It's really a big wheel. I mean, other people have my other fellow tester Johnny out there in Florida. He's done a few, fire roads and some off roading on his V13, and even did a couple little hops and jumps on it. So that was impressive. I'm not that skilled, in my opinion, to actually jump the V13. But I mean, I'll go downstairs and hop off curbs. I don't dare to go up a curb, at least yet. I'm not comfortable with it, even though the wheel is big and is very capable, and I've seen other people do it. I There's a confidence issue with me still, and I can't ride backwards either or pendulum. So yeah, I'm just a straight line commuter rider for the most part. Range. Yesterday I did about a 35-mile ride from work down to a sports bar. Ended up having about 20% battery left. And I was easily over 40 miles per hour GPS about 80% of the time. So, yeah, I burn through battery a lot. Other people I know have asked if I can get 40 miles out of the wheel, and there's no question. I mean, if you're even cruising at a decent speed, yeah, you can get decent range out of it. Hi Ryan, what's going on? Comfort wise, it is one of the most stable wheels I've ridden at high speeds. Um, I know, who was it? I can't remember his name right now on Facebook. I think it was Miguel. He was commenting, back and forth, like, well, the Master Pro is really comfortable at speed too. I'm like, yeah, it is. I'm just saying the V13 is more comfortable. I'm not taking away by any means on how comfortable other wheels can be, and especially if you're acclimated to a certain wheel. I get it. I'm like, I've ridden the Master Pro. I've ridden the Master Pro at speed, and yeah, like any other wheel, it's something you just get used to. And the V13 for me, I got used to it really quickly. Like the second day I received it, I was already hitting tilt back. So call me crazy, but yeah, I mean, I have the roads to commute on that's open enough for me to reach high speeds. So might as well test it out, right? Speaking of, I know there was a lot of, I guess, controversy and other stuff. I'm like, I want to make this very clear. I didn't get this wheel for free. I mean, none of the international testers did. We had to put down a security deposit, do all the things, sign our NDAs, and I was just surprised I even got chosen to begin with. I'm essentially nobody in the community for the most part, besides my social media presence. And even then, it's a situation where I've been really busy with life and work, where I can't make out to the big events that I would like to. Stuff like Apple Valley, stuff like Amped Electric Games. I would love to find the time to go to them, but I haven't. My only bonus and consolation is the fact that I live in the Bay Area and Alien Rides is an hour north of me. So I'm surrounded by plenty of people with plenty of different wheels, and that is a privilege I appreciate um, and love so much because it allows me to test or even just hop on almost any wheel that I want. The only thing that I haven't tried yet is a Commander Pro, which and the EX30 as well. I know Alien Rides has an EX30 already. I assume they might have a Commander Pro already in their demo line. I just haven't had time to go up there to test it. But Sherman S, all the latest wheels, the T4, I mean, I hopped on my friend's EX20 at one point as well, and having access to be able to try out different wheels, I think, is something that gives me a lot of insight as to what I like, as well as being able to provide the feedback that I do, which may have been the case when InMotion decided to pick this random kid in San Jose to receive one, and you know even the Alien Rides, they were like, "That's nuts that I got chosen," but you know ended up doing the thing. I've had the wheel since November. I've run through its paces, and unlike Show and the guys at the shop there that abused their wheels enough to where they got their axle bolts loose. I mean, it. I guess I just didn't abuse my wheel enough to see that. So sorry. Guess that's my fault. But I mean, I plan on changing my axle bolts out as well, and want to make a video on it. I just haven't had time. But right now, I'm still running the stock axle bolts. Things are still tight. Nothing's rattled loose yet on me. Nothing's shattered. Suspensions fine. Do I like it better than say the Sherman S suspension? It's so and so. The Sherman S in particular, I believe the hype is warranted. Uh, I hopped on my friend Sherman S, and it was just buttery smooth. There's no way around it. It's just like you're floating on air. And coming from the V13, that's a 22-inch down to a 20 again. That was also kind of interesting because the wheel's a little bit more nimble now because it's a smaller tire. But it's there's so many wheels and so many choices for a lot of people out there, and you just have to figure out what's best for your case. And right now, the V13 checks my boxes as far as commuting to work. I mean, I can commute to work on my other wheels too, but as far as comfort, the larger 22-inch is nice. Uh, but yeah, I haven't been riding that long. But then again, some other people. I mean, I remember them both. They're both the fastest female riders we know out there in the community, and they started learning to ride in the UC after I did. So just being out there with the community, being out there to big events, getting more of a presence out there, it got them popular real quick. It's fine. We love them both. We all love everybody. But yeah, um, going back to my story, I guess. So after the whole float wheel thing and learning on my friend's V8, I graduated to a Kingsong 18L, um, not the XL, the L. So less battery, but it was a gradual increase in speed and learning to ride a slightly heavier wheel than the V8. And I remember starting out, the V8 to me felt heavy. And then hopping on the Kingsong 18L was even heavier. And then eventually I got uh, the EXN. That was the wheel to purchase at the time in summer 2021 or so. Grabbed that, and though I don't probably haven't touched it in about half a year, I still put like 336, maybe close to 4,000 miles on that wheel already. And then from the EXN, I got the Master, and I have probably close to 2,000 miles on that wheel as well, surprisingly enough. Um, I'm seeing my audience. I'm glad you guys are sticking with me. Uh, but yeah, from the Master, I wanted the Master Pro, but then that email from InMotion just randomly, just like, hey, you got chosen. I'm like, what? So that money that I wanted to put towards the Master Pro, I ended up putting as the security deposit for the V13, and that's basically where it went. So the option, after the testing phase was over back in December or so, was I can return the wheel and get my money back, or I could just keep the wheel and forfeit the deposit. And I like the wheel enough, and obviously I keeping it. So that, and I think it's still really nice the fact that my wheel says beta on the side of the panels versus everybody else with their production versions. But you know there are certain quirks about the beta wheels that were changed in production, some for better and some for worse. I know that I mentioned it somewhere, I think in one of the forums one time, when I think EVs first did their teardown, and especially when their bolts snapped, first big controversy of the V13. I looked at the bolts that they had and the bolts that I had in my beta wheel, and like, they're different. So eventually talked to Bob. I did, yeah. Bob is a very interesting fellow. He is one of those CEOs that really loves to talk to his customers, his fan base, and just to get feedback and information on how to improve the product. And it's ridiculous. And like all of a sudden, I think I can't remember who it was that posted on Facebook that's like, "Hey, Bob is looking for people to talk to," and I'm just like, "Can I?" Because like I've had other friends who've talked to him, and I was like, I've never talked to him, so volunteered myself, and next thing you know, I have like a whole hour meeting of just talking and answering questions with Bob, and I'm like, this is ridiculous and crazy, and it gave him a lot of good feedback, and for the most part was very very excited on InMotion's future. One in particular was you know trying to get a little bit more speed out of V13. and told him, certain other things, obviously, fixing, how to implement something like fancier mode to make it safer for us speed demons who want to even go faster than what it can limit us to right now. Vetting? I don't know if I don't know if there was any type of vetting for me, Ryan. I just I just literally like, hey, I'll talk to Bob. And next thing you know, I get a message on the side. It's like, hey, you really want to talk to Bob? I'm like, sure, okay. Well, and we set a schedule. And it's just weird. And then, lately with everything that's going on with the V13, blah blah blah, and now, the cutout and everything else, you just see the fighting on Facebook, and it's just like there's just brand loyalty. All the Begode fans are talking crap, and all the Emotion fans are being defensive and everything else. And I've been accused about being an InMotion fanboy. I'm like, okay, no, I don't have any brand loyalty. I just want to say that upfront. I've owned a wheel at one point in my life from every manufacturer. I've had a Sherman, a regular Sherman, for actually a small period of time, and I've ridden one as well. I still have a King Song. I still have an InMotion. I still have Begode wheels in my garage. So it's not like I'm, a Speed Demon Begode fanboy, because I am a Speed Demon. That's why I have my master. That's why I'm still keeping my EXN, even though it doesn't get much mileage on it anymore. It's because I like going fast, and there is a certain amount of skill, in my opinion, that it takes to be able to touch that upper limit without going over. And that is a skill level that I probably obtained from riding Begode wheels that translated over to the V13 pretty well. Because I don't full on lean when it's already, you know, close to top speed. It's a gentle, gradual situation where, I'm just creeping up towards that top end. And I noticed that recently, at least even this morning, I just noticed how I ride fast on the V13. And I'm not really dependent on the power pads when I'm going close to 50 miles an hour on the V13, actually. I'm on both of my toes, heels up, and just cruising fast and just gently accelerating. And the feedback that I'm getting, I think I'm doing this subconsciously. I didn't even think about it until this morning. But me being on both of my toes allows me to get the necessary feedback from the wheel when it's tilting back, that I know where I'm approaching the limit. And I'm not relying on power pads to accelerate at those speeds, because yeah, that can be a little risky, and obviously could cause an overlean condition. But when I'm first accelerating from a stop, no, I'm leaning into the pads hard. I mean, I have a screenshot posted somewhere. I've pulled over 11,000 kilowatts, which is apparently a lot more than the wheel is supposed to handle. But I was able to do it. Accelerated fast up to probably close to 40, and then from there I gently backed off the throttle and just kept creeping up to the 50 mile per hour, you know, cruising ish speed that I sometimes do. Yeah, I really did want to go faster. Uh, yeah, Bob. When I had a meeting with Bob Francois, we were talking about being able to go faster, and he was saying as soon as April that they could try to put something together. And with this incident, it's it's such a huge setback. They have to reevaluate things, and, and I mean, there's no doubt that there should be better alert systems. To me, I personally feel the tilt back is sufficient enough, but some people, well, obviously in this instance, the Mercury didn't feel the tilt back and just went over. Uh, we already know the alarms on the wheel are completely inaudible at speed. I I can't hear the wheels beep at me. No, not at all. And I told Mark and the other people at InMotion, like, you need to implement that in the app at the very least. And they're like, just like EUC World. I'm like, yes, like EUC World. I'm like, I've been hounding everybody to get you know broadcast alarms through the phone, through, so we can hear through Bluetooth, because most of us who are going that fast have a headset in our helmets, or some type of way to hear alarms independent from what's coming out of the wheel speaker beeper thing. Because yeah, at over 45 miles an hour, I've had friends that we can, like, when we're riding next to them, we can hear them beeping. But the rider itself, even if the beeper is right there, sometimes the wind and their helmet alone obscures it so much that they can't hear it. And one of my friends recently, actually a few months ago, I can't remember. There's a whole. He kind of went viral too. He was leaning hard on his master and completely went down. And part of it was cold weather, and it shattered into pieces. That wheel was not salvageable. He probably only saved like maybe the motor. I surprisingly, the motor and the rim survived, and maybe two of the batteries survived, but everything else was destroyed. So you know, just alerts. Just the problem that another thing is, in any overlean condition, um, if the wheel is able to detect it early on, which the V13 apparently did for Mercury's case, from the initial alert to where it'll cut out, depending on what the rider is doing at the time, that window could be very small. I think in this case the window was kind of large because he was at 70 ish when it started reacting to him, but it was too subtle in his case, and the beeps were very inadequate that he kept pushing, and we all know what happened from there. Best wishes for him out there, by the way. I hope you're healing okay. He doesn't seem to be too hurt, just more in shock, if anything else. And the wheel, yeah, just replace some bumpers. It's fine again. Uh, I don't know. We're coming up about half an hour in. I don't know if you guys have any other questions to me or anything else. I just, wanted to get on here and just vent almost about what's been happening. But yeah, I mean, to me, I'm just an average person that just wants to put good information out to people to educate them. I just have the privilege of obtaining the V13 early on, and I have a lot of miles under my belt under it, and I want to inform people, you know, that's my goal. I have absolutely no affiliation with anybody. I don't get any kickbacks from anything. I don't have any links to any products that I talk about. I nearly not remotely close enough to enough subscribers to even make money off of this platform. So I'm like, I'm just doing this to help people, and that's all I've been doing. Um, Super. Francois is asking initial testing phase updates changing things via firmware. Yes, I did. Um, Funny enough, I want to talk to. This was one of the kind of most obscure stories that I know in particular. When I was talking to Mark about trying to unlock the speed, it kind of backfired on me because that was actually when we were going back and forth. It's like, you know what? Maybe we should do something like the S20, well, S22 did, where you're limited to a certain speed until a certain amount of distance, as in I wanted to do that to unlock a fancier mode to go over 90 kilometers an hour. Instead, I don't know if it was my idea or if it was already in the process of doing it. There was like, all right, well, let's do the limit uh, 60 kilometers an hour for the first 30 kilometers. And then I was like, okay. And then when they pushed that update out to my wheel, it ignored my odometer completely. And I was completely stuck by because Mark had sent me another link to another APK app that would have looked at my odometer and automatically unlocked those speeds. But by then, when I first did it, did the update in the morning, it locked me out, and it was horrendous because by then China was all sleeping and everything else, and I was like, well, now I'm stuck under 60 kilometers an hour for 30 kilometers. And I had been testing the wheel for weeks, going high speeds, commuting to work. And that morning, my commute to work was horrendously frustrating as I was fighting tiltback at, well, essentially 37 miles an hour the entire time. So, yeah, as far as during the testing phase, yeah, that was not the best morning for me, being stuck under 37 miles an hour. It is, I talk about it, and now it's like it's absurd. Like 37 miles an hour is kind of fast already, but to me, I've been riding 40, 45 plus for weeks, and being stuck under that for a couple hours as I was commuting to work and just fighting tiltback so hard. That's why I was just like, tiltback comes in pretty gentle, but when it fights you, it fights you, and it really doesn't want you to go faster. That is also one of the that's how the claims of the no cutout claims happen. Was people like I know Marty has mentioned it too. I'm like, we can't do a high speed cutout on this thing because it'll tilt back hard on you if you try to go faster. And I still believe that's the case. It'll still prevent, or it's still really difficult to get a high speed cutout on the V13. But as we've seen, you can still over torque and over lean the wheel. So, uh, oops. Yes, I have a lot of straight lines on my commute. It is pretty straight. The roads that I go on are usually 35 to 45 mile per hour, you know, inside roads. Obviously, I'm not taking on the freeway, but I mean, I'm still going pretty fast in a 45 because I mean, even the cars are going like over the speed limit in the 45. So to be safe, and I addressed this to Bob too. I'm like, I have cars around me going a lot faster than the speed limit, and for me to be safe, I need to at least keep up with them at 50. And with the GPS error with the wheel, I'm literally like borderline already going at 50. Yeah. Yes, the tilt back is. I really praised how they implemented tilt back because to me, I ride it in I guess not an aggressive manner enough for for me to be able to not miss it. So yeah, I've never missed tilt back, but maybe it's because I have so much time on the wheel, and I like I said, I'm on both of my toes with heels up, and I could feel, you know, the subtle lifting of the pedals or even a dip or anything else when I'm accelerating, and the wheel's like, hey, you what is this? EUC World. Francois asking about EUC World. Yes, EUC World has basic support for the wheel. When SEMA first released the V13 compatibility, it was very basic connectivity. When I first tried to connect to V13 before that update, I could see voltage, I could see speed, and everything else was off. Like even the temperature was just like, that is so wrong. It was reading stupid, really high. But two updates ago, he put basic functionality and everything was working fine. But I did run into an issue where it reset the onboard clock on the wheel. So the display on the V13 does have a clock, and every time UC World connected to it, it would reset the clock to 1426 specifically that time. And I addressed it to Siba. He was like, I suspect it was resetting to a specific time. I told him that time, and it was like, oh, okay, he can fix it. And he did. And now it works pretty much fine in a decent capacity. It even has basic functions to adjust pedal softness or hardness in this case. Pedal softness, hardness, and split riding mode is now compatible. Last I saw on EUC World as well with the V13. Yeah, yeah. We're catching up on Francois' comments. But yeah, like I said, 60 kilometers an hour is, in my opinion, still reasonable. But when you had been testing the wheel and going fast for a while, and then just now just immediately limited back to slower speeds, it was, yeah, tiltback sucks. I can see why a lot of speed demons, and especially Pagode riders in particular, I'm a Pagode rider by the way too, don't like it, and we usually turn it off. But I appreciated how gentle the V13 was. It because tilt back on a Pagode wheel, in my opinion, it is too aggressive. That is why it can be a dangerous situation where it can throw a person off balance, and that's a very fine line to be able to adjust something like that to be able to meet the adequate demands of alerting the rider to slow down. And first, when I first experienced tilt back on the V13, it was gentle, and to me it was subtle enough, and I was just like, even I was confused. I'm like, looked down, I'm like, oh yeah, the wheel's alarming. Oh, I must have hit tilt back. I'm like, it It is subtle, but if you're paying attention to it, I guess that's a keyword, paying attention to it, yeah, you can feel it. The app alarms, the UC world has always had its own safety margin alarms, as far as I understand, and those alarms do work with the V13, and depending on where you set it, because it's by default it's 20% uh, on UC world, and it will go off before the wheel will do any other alarms. So uh, I'm not sure yet if the wheel's onboard alarms can broadcast correctly to EUC World, but yeah, UC World safety margins alarms, as far as I know, is independent and is calculated by EUC World itself. So, da, da, da. App alarms. Yeah, I don't know exactly if the wheel alarms can connect to EUC worlds properly, but I usually just go off the safety margins of EUC world, like its own calculations, which is still really conservative, by the way. I definitely like, even when I'm running EUC world on my other wheels, on the Goad wheels, that alarm will go off way before the wheel will even start beeping. So, and to me, that leaves a really large buffer. So, and depending on how much speed I'm really pushing, I might decrease the safety margin percentage on EUC World. But that you're basically touching that fine line of not wanting to cross again. Uh, Approaching. Yeah. Thank you for joining. Um, I'm pretty sure everybody's busy because it is a Friday. I still need to eventually go back to work soon. I'm taking time out of my busy day to sit down in a workspace quiet room. This is where I'm at right now, to be able to just spill out everything. Robert Paulson's asking if I have the original tire or put on the street tire. I currently have the Michelin 80/90/16 street tire on my wheel. I have had people question me how it performs. And here is my ultimate conclusion. The stock knobby, for I don't know how, I don't know. I mean, I know where it's from. It's branded on the tire too. Yeah, Yuang Zing or whatever it is. The stock knobby on the V13 is seriously impressive. I know, I think it was Ash over on the East Coast mentions like it doesn't ride like it rides like a street tire. It doesn't ride like a knobby, and I agree with that 100%. It has a great round profile for the stock tire, and the only difference between the stock knobby and the street tire that I have now is the street tire is quieter. It is slightly smaller, so I get a little bit more torque as well, and I lose a little bit of the top end speed. So I usually reach 48, 49 miles per hour max now before I hit tilt back GPS speeds versus the like 52 and a half or so miles per hour top speed GPS on the stock tire. But that's really, as far as like how it turns, how it carves, it is almost identical. It is, and I told this to some other friends too. I know Lee Sachi from Australia. He was like, "Yeah, I think I'm just going to leave the stock tire on because of how I compare it to the street. It rides like a street tire. It's just noisy because of the knobby." Trap? No, I never had any issues with the stock tire tram lining, or in this case, it's also called train tracking. No issues with the stock tire train tracking on me. Uh, if the cracks are big enough, then it doesn't matter what tire at that point. Like I've had some instances where I've had a big crack and my street tire was train tracking it. So yeah, it but as far as like performance wise between the difference, no, it doesn't have any issues in my opinion. I've never felt any train tracking from the stock Navi, just as it performs by itself. All right, Ryan. Yeah, I need to go back to work soon as well. But I'll see you at the next. Actually, I'm missing. Yeah, there's a local ride this evening, but I have tickets to Quantumania, so I'm gonna be watching that instead. Let's see what else. InMotion wheels report inverter load. I am not sure exactly. Is that? Are you talking about reporting it to like EUC World, Francois? Uh, I need to check that because I mean it. I'm not sure. I need to play with. I assume so. I have been recording logs through EUC World, like the data logs, not just the tours, but the data. So I will probably look through that to see if it shows anything, then I'll get back to you on Telegram. But I assume yes. But yeah, um, I don't really have much anything else to cover. I guess safety margin. Okay. Yeah, I'll I'll see if it's recorded by EC World in the data logs, or I could just send you the logs too. But it should have something, I believe, in the table in the file. But uh, anyway, yeah, I don't have much else to cover. If you have any questions about who the hell I am, or anything else with any wheel, honestly, I mean, yeah, we've been talking about. I talk about the V13 a lot. Yeah, sure, because that's the wheel that's been on everyone's freaking topic and conversation. Because all the other wheels, when something happens, we just always blame the rider, right? So yeah, just hit me up on Telegram or anything else if you have anything, or guess I don't. You can't really leave comments on the live stream, huh? Just the chat. Yeah, whatever. Thanks, guys, and until next time.